The Fixed Ops Roundtable community will be very familiar with Shon Kingrey, who is the Fixed Operations Director at Step One Automotive Group. And Shon, we are thrilled and honored to welcome you back to the show.
Well, thank you, Mr. Ings. I appreciate it. It's an honor to be invited. It's an honor to be here. And even with the company that's behind me, it's an honor to be here, sir.
Well, I was going to mention that. You're being joined today here at May the 4th be with you. And who do you got there behind you?
Well, so everybody's got the secret, as you go around and you facilitate or you teach classes, you go around and you got to tell something secret about yourself.
Yes.
This is my secret. So I am one of the closet Star Wars guys, Ted. I admit that I am. And I believe Kara and myself and you had a call the other day. Another thing nobody knows about me is I have a right leg that is completely dedicated to Star Wars. That was all COVID, by the way. I have a little bit of artwork done on it. And then I have the 4 characters behind me that I have a small, overwhelming investment in, we'll put it.
Wow. And I will make a full disclosure that, yes, when we have needed subject matter expertise for this event, the Fixed Ops Roundtable, Kara and I have consulted you, Shon.
Yes. And by the way, for the record, and my wife does not know this, the 5th is coming. It'll be here in the end of June. It's being made as we speak. That's Boba Fett.
Now, where do you get, how do you acquire those? How does that happen?
Well, so actually the company that makes them is a company out of Soho, New York, which you and I are both very familiar with.
Yes.
They're a company that actually has the license from Star Wars. And how it started was I flew to Soho for a weekend getaway. Yes, I have a problem. To get fitted for the Darth Vader one. It's a legit Darth Vader costume. It's straight from Star Wars. I was fitted for it, made for it. They shipped it to me, had a few alterations done. Since then, the rest of them, once they have your sizes, you order them, they create them, they ship them.
So there answers my next question as to are those life size, and they are. Wow.
They are life size, they are full costumes, and they are very wearable. The only one I've ever worn to any event was a downtown New Orleans for Mardi Gras. I was asked to wear the Darth Vader one, and I did. And I tell you, got quite a bit of attention.
I can imagine, Shon.
Yes.
So, anyway, so we're learning a whole lot about
Yes.
Star Wars and about Shon Kingrey. Shon, tell us a little bit about your role there at Step One. How many dealerships do you oversee? How many employees? Kind of give us a little glimpse into your professional life there.
So we are based out of Fort Walton Beach, Florida. We tell everybody Destin, Florida, because nobody seems to know where Fort Walton Beach, Florida is. We have 5 stores here. Altogether now we're at 19 stores. We just opened up some new stores in Bessemer, Alabama, just west of Birmingham. That's a Chevy point. That was our first Chevy point. But altogether, we have 20 franchises now. We have 3 parts operations, as I think you and I have discussed in the past. And I did a piece for Automotive News that we bought some mighty auto parts franchises to supplement our own inventory in our own stores. We have 2 rental car companies, which are VIP rental. Going to open and expand a few more of those where we're actually feeding ourselves and renting ourselves cars. And again, from there, we're just growing. That's who we are.
And Shon, how many employees report to you in your capacity there?
The group as a whole, we have 857 as of right now, and I have 417 of those.
Wow, that's a huge number, and that's a lot of people, and and as Fernando said, a lot of families. Okay,
it is a lot of families. You got to read that. And again, to your point, Ted, and to Fernando's point, it's not you, it's the families you're feeding and the things that you do. And as we do onboard orientations, and we talk about that, during COVID, we didn't lay one person off, not one. We actually lost a couple teammates, we call them. That passed away from COVID, but we never laid one person off, where some of the other groups were doing 30 or 40% cuts around us. Not one person. We kept everybody gainfully employed that could work. And I think that's one of our strengths that kept the reputation up.
Tell us about you, Shon. Where'd you grow up? Because you're not from Florida originally, I don't think.
I am not, sir. I'm originally from a little town in Iowa. I'm a city boy, by the way. I'm not a farm. I got a flat tire on a farm once. That's my extent of farming, by the way. I'm a city boy from Iowa. I graduated from Iowa. Straight out of high school, I went to boot camp in the Marine Corps, spent 6.5 years in the Marine Corps, and then I I got started in this great business, and I think I'll segue into that, where I was in Boone, Iowa, at a dealership getting my oil changed, and had no clue what I was doing. I probably looked upset, I'm guessing, because some gentleman comes and sits next to me and talks to me, and after 45 minutes or so, he goes, "Hey, what are you going to do with your life?" Well, at the time, I happened to be in a cast because I broke my foot, and I'd been in a cast for a little over 2 years in the Marine Corps. And I said, "I don't know. I was a firefighter. I can't do that anymore." And he said, "Well, come work for me." And I asked him, "Do you sell Amway?" Because I thought that's what he was. And he happened to be the dealer principal, and I didn't know it.
Wow. How old were you? How old were you at the time?
I was 24.
Wow.
24. Didn't know what a spark plug was from an oil filter, to be honest with you. He is actually one of my mentors. Always was, always had been. And again, I can go down that story real quick, but he taught me a lot. He taught me the good of the business, the bad of the business. He'd tell you once, don't tell you twice. The second time wasn't so good. And then from there, I spent 7 years with him, and he had 7 stores in Iowa. And I was recruited out of there by a headhunter to Minneapolis to work for Denny Hecker for 11 stores. And I ran 26 stores for Denny.
Wow. Just going back to Iowa for a moment. How did you start off, at what position? And by the time you left, what position were you at?
Sure. So I started off as a service writer. And when Pat asked me in the waiting room, I said, "Well, what do you want me to do for you?" And he goes, "Be a service writer." I said, "What's that?" He goes, "That's the guy that checked you in when you got in here." And so I was a service writer for like 7 or 8 months. And then a guy who I'm still very good friends with to this day taught me a lot. And I became a service manager. And like I said, I spent 7 years with him and took over all of his group and helped run all of his stores. So I literally got my teeth ground in Iowa. And then, like I said, went to Minneapolis, went to NADA Academy, spent 11 years there, spent 3 years as a general manager, running the both front end and back end in Duluth, Minnesota.
Wow.
And to be very honest with you, Ted, and I think I've covered this on your show once before, I didn't enjoy the front end. I'm not a front end guy. I'm a back end guy. I'm a fixed ops guy, not a variable guy.
And that's, not common for people to say that, because there's a lot of glamour associated with the front end, the variable side of the dealership.
There's trips, and there's this meeting and this meeting and that meeting and this, this event and that event. But again, I think it's because I cut my teeth so hard with Pat in Iowa, and then with Denny and the things I learned from Denny along the way. That's where I came from. That's what I knew.
What I think is really something that we don't see often. You run not just the fixed operations there at the dealership, but your wife is in charge of the financial services F&I at Step One. And how did you meet Tiffany Kingrey, and how did that come about?
So her story, my story might be a little bit different for that, but we'll take my story now. After the Minneapolis events occurred with Denny, which is pretty carnal knowledge at this point, but yeah. I was recruited to go to Pennsylvania and work for Mile One and be their fixed ops director.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So a unique situation where it's actually a pretty good story. And that they have 17 franchises under one rooftop. Sales is on one side of the street, service is on another. A mutual friend of ours introduced us together. And we dated and lived together for like 7 months before anybody knew, because there was some rules against that. You want the whole story? We go to a Lone Star restaurant about an hour from the dealership. Yes. And as soon as I walked in, I saw a salesman. And as soon as I saw the salesman, I'm like, busted. I knew it. As soon as we walked in, I knew we were busted. We finished dinner on Monday morning. The president of the company comes and sees me and says, "Hey, you and I need to talk." And I said, "No, there's really nothing to talk about, because Ted, I won't lie." I said, "Hey, listen, I need to tell you the truth. Tiffany and I have been living together for quite some time. It's not like it's done." He goes, "Well, you know the rules. You can't date. You have to be married." I said, "Okay, give me a week. I'll figure it out." We got married that Friday.
Wow. And how long ago was that, Shon?
7 years ago in June, sir.
Oh, wonderful. Wow.
Yes.
And now, you've been in the car business for quite some time, and you've built up a great following. You're running the dealership group there for fixed operations. So kind of take us through a day in the life of Shon Kingrey. I know there's a lot of different things that happen in the dealership, but your stores are not all just in one place, as you said. I would imagine you have to move around a little bit from one store to another.
We do. So we actually have, again, we have stores in Florida, we have stores in Alabama, stores in Georgia.
Georgia.
So what we've grown to now we're $1 billion company. Officially in 2021, we became $1 billion company. We're no longer a company now; we're a corporation. We call ourselves. And you do have to move around. We use WhatsApp as a form of communication. I can tell you that out of my 19 rooftops that I have that are underneath of me, some managers, Ted, I talk to every day because they need that. They need the hugs and the kisses and the loves. There's other managers who, quite frankly, don't want to hear from me, and that's okay. But my claim to fame, or I guess my pride, is two different things. Out of all of our rooftops, I can tell you the name of every one of my technicians. I can, and I can tell, and again, I always make the joke. I can tell you the name of their wives, but I can tell you that I know all of them because that's where the bread and butter is. And as I share with you from time to time, Ted, I'm the one who does the numbers every single night. I post them for all the stores. Good laundry, bad laundry, dirty laundry, whatever you want to call it. I post every store's numbers. I call out the good. I call out the bad. We celebrate the victories, and we challenge ourselves on the struggles that we're having, on who's struggling from time to time.
Wow. I see that you are very much involved even today with the NADA Dealer Academy, and you go through a lot of training with your teams through NADA. Tell us about that and how that came about, and what prompted a lot of that.
Absolutely. So as we grew as a group, and as we grew larger and larger, and we recruited out of the, my partner on the variable sides from V Auto, and you have this guy in used and this guy in fixed, everybody was struggling to find out who the trainer was, who could train everybody. Well, the answer was always NADA. And being a graduate of the academy, for me, it was almost a no-brainer, because for those that have been through the academy, what you learn is there's no secrets. You start from accounting, you go to variable to fixed, and you go through everything. So what we decided as a group to do was we brought NADA to us. We have a group of 20 of us, or 20, there are 20 of them. I'm sitting in it, going through it with them, even though I've already graduated. But we have 20 individuals, from our director of marketing to the director of variable, to my parts director, to my number 2, to a parts manager at one of our stores, all going through NADA Academy as we speak. We just finished week 4. Week 5 is coming up in July, and we will all 20 of them will graduate by the end of the year. But to take that a step further, what NADA has done for us, we are allowed. So a gentleman named Mark, it doesn't make a difference, but he is the parts instructor for NADA.
I know Mark Mikowski.
Yes, great guy. Spend a lot of time with Mark, we'll say. We hired Mark to come back on a weekend, on a Friday and Saturday, and because you can't clear the stores and bring all the parts managers in,
right?
We brought Mark back and brought them in on a complete 2-day training. We crammed 5 days of NADA training in 2 days to every parts manager that we have in the group. Required training. And let me tell you, by the first day out, they walk, oh, this is horrible. By the second day, they were begging for more. And I literally mean begging for more. And we're going to do the same thing for service as well. For the service managers, because I've only got 2 that are in the group of 20, we're bringing all the rest of them in to go through a 2-day boot camp, training those 5 days into 2 days. Off-site, uninterrupted, no cell phones. That's it.
And Shon, that is not common that NADA would come to you. With the number of people that you've got, it makes sense to do it that way. But I've not been familiar with NADA doing that for anybody else.
No, it's rare. It's funny, when we were in day 1 of training with Mark of parts, we hadn't thought about this. When we signed up for NADA, this wasn't part of the agreement. It was something that Fernando and I and a couple of us came up and said, hey, we wish all the parts managers, because you knew right away there was information that some of our parts managers just didn't know. Because, Fernando made a comment during one of our meetings. He said, we pride ourselves of being imperfectly perfect. Who's the last department to get trained? It's parts. So we went with Mark, and Mark and myself sat out in the lobby and negotiated, and he agreed to a weekend it would work. And it was something as an afterthought. And then we just set it up, and boom. And as you've seen some of I know, Ted, you and I talk a lot on LinkedIn. There's never a good time to train. You have to make time to train.
Yes. It's intentional, very much so.
It
You spend a lot of time investing in yourself and in your team and your staff to make everybody the very, very best. Here we are in the middle of May, Shon.
Yes.
Last question. What would you tell our audience looking into 2022, looking into the summer months, into the fall? what should we be, because you're a great student of the industry, what should we be preparing for now? What should we be looking at and addressing and be concerned about as an industry right now, for you and your peers?
I think there's three things, Ted. First of all, EV, which you gave us a great platform the last session, which was awesome. I got a ton of great feedback. The second thing is Marco, infamous Marco, now that I've got to know it. And again, I'm going to give Ted Ings a plug here, and he's probably going to get mad at me for doing it for those that are watching. But I've got to meet so many Ed Roberts and Ted and Kara and Sarah through your platform. You and I were sitting in a meeting, or we're sitting in a session together last session 2 ago, whatever it was. And we were talking about money. There was a couple of us that were all talking about money and what we offer techs and some of the recruiting I've done and the things that we're offering. And Marco just literally put me in my tracks, and it changed who I am today. He says, guys, stop offering money. Anybody will pay us money. It's quality of life. And I'm not kidding. That literally changed all my recruiting tactics that day. And we all know that Marco's made a few posts as of late in the last couple months that has got a ton of great feedback. And let's be honest, he's put himself on a limb doing it. But he's not wrong. And if you listen to what he's saying, anybody can offer a technician $50 an hour because we're all doing it. Quality of life now. And the last and third thing I'll say easily is, as the business changes and as my mind needs to change, as sales continues to sell cars and there are no new cars to sell, where we have an 80 or a 70 or whatever your percentage is of retention on new, and you're retaining 30% used. If you're not focused on used for 2023, you're going to fail, because you have to figure out a way to get those used cars back in 2023 to make this thing work.
And on the used side, reconditioning, I see, is a big part of your plan there at the dealership group.
Yeah. So we've actually just opened up our 4th used car center. And I know that Fernando and you had a conversation about it. It's called the Center of Excellence. It's a non-customer facing 35-bay facility, all state of the art, has one purpose: used cars. It's all about reconditioning.
Wow. Shon, you got so much going on there. Of course, I'm going to invite you to come back at our next event and tell us and give us an update on everything that you have going on with your career and at the group there as well. So, on behalf of the Fixed Ops community, we really appreciate you being with us here today, and at all the panels, because we're all learning from each other.
Yes, Ted, I thank you very much for setting the platform for all of us to be on it.
Love it. And I thank you, and I thank your associates behind you.
Yes,
and and I thank you again for all your subject matter expertise on all the things that we discussed. So everybody, Shon Kingrey, the Fixed Ops Director at Step One, here today at the Fixed Ops Roundtable.
Thank you, Ted.